love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me.
Hello, Miami. Thank you so much for watching 305 Sports Now. I am your host, Will, and I know many of us are still ecstatic and elated over the Miami Hurricanes' victory over the Florida Gators by a score of 41-17. That was, again, and I can't say it enough, a major thrashing, butt whipping, tail whipping, whatever you want to call it. It happened, man. The Miami Hurricanes went over there and dissected offensively and dismantled defensively what was the Florida Gator defense and offense alike, man. There is nothing that the Florida Gators can hang their hats on, and there's nothing that they can say that we did this right other than a 71-yard touchdown run by Montrell Johnson, and that's it. The Miami Hurricanes just flat out dominated. But the one thing I must say about this team, again, and you can see it in the thumbnail, he's being talked about is once again, the guy is Cam Ward. Cam Ward was just electric yesterday. Again, I'm going to go over his stats right now, just so I can go over with all of you. I know I went over it yesterday with my, actually Saturday, remember I pre-recorded this, Saturday evening, but 26 of 35, 74% completion passing, 385 yards passing, an average of 11 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, only getting sacked once during the game. And he basically had over, you can make a case, he had over 400 yards, all-purpose yards in the game with about 33 yards rushing to boot. So let me tell you guys why this is such a big game. And I know we've been through this before. We've had games, even last season, the A&M game, in which Tyler Van Dyke just lit up Texas A&M. And we were in a position where we could become, once again, we felt a national powerhouse, only to be let down by ACC play. But the thing is that the vibe is different this year, and it's much more noticeable about it. It's year 3 of Mario Cristobal's recruiting class, and year 3 of Mario Cristobal's additions in the transfer portal as well. And this team just feels different. Cam Ward is an elite quarterback, right? A very elite quarterback, very much under-recruited before he got to the collegiate level, goes to a smaller school, lights it up, goes over to Wazoo, lights it up, and then in his first game in a very hostile environment of 93,000 people, only 4,000 road tickets were given out to the Miami Hurricanes faithful. So that means the Gators had about an 89,000 home field advantage pretty much of the crowd, and it was nothing. So as a matter of fact, Cam looked very calm, and after the game, he even said that it's louder in Oregon than it was in the Swamp. That is just different than what we are used to. And let's face facts, it's good to be excited because we have an elite quarterback. And like I mentioned, and like I just mentioned a couple seconds ago, wherever he's gone, he's lit it up. He's been very successful, and this young man just doesn't care. He's a passer with a gunslinger mentality. He had that one interception that could have been a catch by his receiver, who basically had the ball in his hands, got tipped up in the air and got picked off. He goes right to the iPad, makes an adjustment, goes back out there and lights up again, and just takes it. You know what? Next play. Was not afraid to take chances again with his throwing as well, and his throwing is just flat out electric and accurate. He has a very good cohesion and has a lot of chemistry with every portion of the receiving core that you saw on that field today, from everybody from the running backs, the wide receivers, the tight ends as well. It seemed like he was in sync with everybody, and he was able to extend plays because no one could get open in time, whatever, and he had somewhat of a pass rush. Again, kudos to the offensive line. They made him feel very comfortable in the pocket. He was able to extend plays, and the receivers knew, I know what I need to do. He's going to give me the ball. They got open. He got them the football, and, of course, the 3 touchdowns during the game. Another thing, too, is the last year, Shannon Dawson got some criticism in many cases because of his play calling, not using the tight ends. This is a very different year for Shannon Dawson. Number one, it's year 2 in which he's implemented a system in Miami. And also, let's not forget that Cam Ward is the kind of quarterback that makes Shannon Dawson's system work. Shannon Dawson likes a quarterback that is very elusive in the pocket and could also extend plays with his feet, and also is able to run the ball as well if need be, if he gets into trouble, or if it happens to be an RPO, being called in the process. So he likes that guy. Clayton Tune threw for 40 touchdown passes when Shannon Dawson was in Houston. That his last year there calling plays for the University of Houston as well. So that's what I'm trying to say. So you saw the difference between Tyler Van Dyke and you saw it with Cam Ward. Even in the A&M game, the play calling was much different in this game than you saw in A&M, where he took a lot of more risks in terms of his play calling, and it was more dynamic. I would say risk. It was more dynamic. Okay, from the way he used the checkdowns, throwing into his running backs like Chris Johnson and David Martinez, to also the utilization of the tight ends, something that we criticized last season for the fact that the tight ends were underutilized. And people say, well, you have to admit, Riley Williams is a young guy. Cam McCormick has been there for forever. And Elijah Royal was hurt. And it's kind of true, right? Once you had these pass catching tight ends that were able to be on the field, they lit it up. Royal had a very good game. Okay. Elijah Lofton, welcome to the U, balled out. Cam McCormick catches a touchdown pass. So the tight ends were utilized. So now we know that there is room in this offense for the tight ends, and the tight ends will be used as well. And Cam Ward, let me tell you, Cam Ward went through his reads very well. And if he couldn't find an open man, he threw the ball away or tried running for the first down or running for yards, whatever the case may be. Cam Ward is a very smart young man. And let me tell you, we've had, some mediocre quarterback play throughout the last 20 years. We've had some exceptions. Okay, Brock Berlin had a few good games when he replaced Ken Dorsey, but he was replacing Ken Dorsey. Cal Wright was unfortunately, didn't live up to the expectations. Okay, then unfortunately, I love the guy, but now that Ja'Cory Harris, Ja'Cory had some games that you could hang your hat on, but wasn't quite there. And then you had, and then of course you had Brad Kaya. Brad Kaya did very well. And he did okay. I will say Mark Richt's first season, but you can make a case he left too early for the NFL. Malik Rozier got us a 10-win season. But what I'm trying to say is it hasn't been consistent. You have Tyler Van Dyke, who had that good season with Rhett Lashley, whose offense is very simple. Basically, it's 1 or 2 reads and the ball is out. And also how he's able to put his guys in space, and he plays very up-tempo offense, which keeps the defense off balance. But in traditional offense, Van Dyke struggled. Okay, once you put zone on him, it was over for Van Dyke. Then you get this young man who comes in. And the reason why I say it's different, because, you can make the case, well, Van Dyke was good a few times, and so was Brad Kaya. And I mentioned some of these guys I mentioned had some games, right? They had some games, as well. But Cam Ward's done it in every facet, every team he's been on. And he did it in an environment. First game, you're expected to make a ton of mistakes. He really didn't do that. The team itself only had 1 penalty, 1 to 2 penalties the whole game. He didn't make many mistakes except for that 1 interception. He found the open man, and when he threw the ball across his body, the guy was open in space. Okay, it wasn't like it was trying to zip it into 2 men or 2-man coverage or double team. The guys were open in space. He just happens to have the arm strength and the zip to make that throw. He was called a shortstop several times by the announcers in that game, Jesse Palmer being one of them. He was right. Okay, he's absolutely right. He has that shortstop mentality where he's able to sling it, sidearm it, and he's able to throw it over the top as well. So that's what I'm trying to say. This team is built different. It feels different. It feels more united. It feels more cohesive. The depth is off the charts. It was nice to see a rotation of wide receivers as well, not just the same 3 guys that we saw last year. We saw Sam Brown in the game. We saw Say Horton in the game as well, and that was very. We saw Ray Joseph. It's just very good to see that. It's just very good to see that Miami is now using its depth in every position, especially on offense, which keeps these guys fresh. They could come in and they could still be as electric as they have been as well. Restrepo was great as well, getting open. So, not gonna lie, sorry guys, if you guys had a problem with the Restrepo TVD combination, Ward's the same way. Ward is gonna keep going to Restrepo because he's just so darn reliable as well, and that's what makes and that's what makes him a good quarterback. He knows where his guys are gonna be. He knows how to get open. He knows who's gonna make plays with the ball as well, and that's what we have to take a look at. So again, kudos to Mario Cristobal for bringing this young man, Cam Ward, who was the number 1 quarterback prospect in the transfer portal. Miami is able to basically flip him from the NFL, which is hilarious to hear. Flip from the NFL, and he's made a name for himself in this game as already in Kane Lord by knocking off the Florida Gators with 3 touchdown passes and almost 400 yards passing, 400 all-purpose yards as well. 10 different receivers saw the football, caught the football. Again, able to distribute the ball as well. So I'm just so excited for the season, and you as Canes fans should be as well, because the next few games Miami should win before they get into ACC play as well against Virginia Tech, and that's going to be a very exciting game as well. Can't sleep on ACC teams. There will be on film, like I said, of Cam Ward, but I just don't see how any team in the ACC as of right now could stop this juggernaut. Miami's offense is the best in the ACC right now. I'm calling it. I'm totally calling it. This is the best offense in the ACC. You can't stop anybody. You can bracket one guy, you leave somebody open, forget about it. If you want to stop the wide receivers, you can leave the tight ends open for crossers or a check down to the running back. We saw Mark Fletcher catch the football and make something happen with it. Who are you going to stop? And this guy's smart and he's not afraid. There's no fear in Cam Ward. It's unbelievable how calm Cam Ward was throughout the whole game. Even with pressure, how he still went through his progressions. This team is different. This young man is different. And say what you want to say about Mario Cristobal, and I know he gets a lot of stuff. Decision making, I get it. But Mario Cristobal there's a reason why he's making all that money, and there's a reason why Oregon did want to keep him. I don't care what anyone says. They did want to keep Phil Knight did want to keep him over there in Oregon. He came over here because he wanted to come home, basically. Listen, let's be perfectly honest. Yes, he's had some questionable calls, and yes, some of his calls may have cost us some games. We could all talk about the Georgia technique at nauseum. All right, I get it. But again, you also have to look at the bright side of his career, okay? He got FIU his first four-star athlete. He got FIU's first bowl victory, and 80% of you out there back in the early 2000s, okay, in the early or mid 2000s and so on, 80% of you out there will honestly say would have honestly said that FIU dropped the ball by firing him. You guys could all say that. FIU, most of us, amongst friends and sports fans that we talked about, we all thought it was a bad move by FIU firing him, considering the fact that he did what he could with that recruiting class and got you a bowl victory. They fired him, okay? He goes to Oregon. Yes, he had Justin Herbert, okay? He had Justin Herbert. He wins 2 Pac-12s and a Rose Bowl. 2 Pac-12s and a Rose Bowl, all right? He comes to Miami. First 2 seasons weren't the best. There was improvement in year 2. This team could have easily won 10 games. Quarterback decision here and there. Miami could have easily been a 10-win team. Miami would have beaten Georgia Tech if Tyler Van Dyke didn't throw those interceptions. Miami would have beaten NC State as well if it wasn't for again quarterback decisions and so on. And I don't want to harp too much on the previous quarterbacks. Not about that, but I'm just trying to say that last year's team could have won at least 9 games. Right, at least 9 games. Last year's team could have won in the regular season at least 9 games. Now you have the guy. That is your guy. That is the man. You brought him over from Washington State, and he showed out. And he's going to continue to show out. And now we can honestly see why he's a preseason Heisman Trophy candidate. The way this is going, he's going to be competing for that Heisman Trophy. This kid has too much moxie and is too competitive and doesn't like to lose. And the best part is he's always in constant communication with his wide receivers. And that's important because those are the guys that be catching the football. He's a leader. He's that dude. And this season, I don't want to say that he was back, but even though I feel that way because we've been disappointed before, but I just don't see it this year. I just don't see it this year. You have a very favorable schedule. And even though you may run into some teams that'll be tough to beat, I don't see why you can't beat them. You're too stacked at the offensive position and defense as well. Let's give defense their flowers. They took it to Florida. They covered up their best players. Except for that one big run. But it happens. It happens. It happens to the best teams. Let's face it. But for the most part, they had I think like 8 tackles for loss yesterday. Let's give the defense their flowers. Who's gonna beat this team? A team full of wily veterans. And Cam Ward is that dude, man. He's that dude. And he's ours. And barring injury, I see no way Miami can roll through the ACC this year. Now I'm saying it. J.D. Pickle had his team going 11-1, only losing to Florida. That's the only team they were going to lose to. They beat the hell out of the Gators yesterday. What's going to happen when they face all other ACC teams? What's that SEC? ACC teams. What's going to happen? We'll see. But I have very high expectations now for what I saw this last game. I do think Miami could do it. I just don't see anybody stopping this team. That doesn't matter what you throw at Cam Ward. Blitzes, different looks, straight zone, cushion. Doesn't matter what you throw at this young man. Doesn't cover 2, cover 3. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He'll find a way to pick you apart. And if there's a blitz, he may not even throw it. He may just He made it easy a few times just to get out of the situation, and which he could just extend plays. And then what happens? The corners are maybe in man coverage or maybe in their zone focus more on the quarterback, and they could leave the wide receiver to find a hole in the zone and be able to help his quarterback out a little bit. Boom, get some yards. This team is dangerous. It's just so dangerous. And as Canes fans, and as a Canes fan myself, and an alum of the university, I love it. I love it. And I hope you do too. And I hope you like the show, guys. Please do not forget to hit that like button as I'm done. All right. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that share button, guys. Once again, thank you so much for watching 305 Sports Now. I am your host, Will. Have a wonderful day. God bless and go Canes. Bye-bye, guys.